Why do we keep chasing what we know might destroy us? Addiction is a word that often comes with a heavy dose of judgment and misunderstanding. We often think of addicts as people who have lost control, trapped in destructive cycles they can't escape. But what if addiction isn't about moral failure or weakness, but rather about how our brains are wired to desire, learn, and adapt? This is exactly what Marc Lewis, a former drug addict turned neuroscientist, reveals in his groundbreaking work, The Biology of Desire: How Our Brains Are Wired to Want. His personal journey from addiction to scientific exploration provides a rare and deeply human perspective on this complex issue. Imagine this. You're craving something. Maybe it's a piece of cake after dinner, or the dopamine hit from checking your phone notifications. You know you shouldn't, but the pull feels irresistible. Now multiply that feeling by 1,000. That's the compelling force of addiction, but it's rooted in a system designed to help us survive, not destroy ourselves. Marc Lewis explains that addiction is not about being weak or morally flawed. It's about learning. The same brain circuits that help us remember where to find food or how to navigate a new environment are hijacked by addictive behaviors. Addiction isn't a disease in the traditional sense, like cancer or diabetes. It's more like a deeply ingrained habit, reinforced by repetition and emotional intensity. Consider this everyday scenario. You're feeling lonely or stressed after a rough day. You reach for comfort, maybe a glass of wine or a favorite snack. In that moment, your brain registers relief and releases dopamine, the neurotransmitter linked to pleasure and reward. The memory of that relief sticks, and the next time you feel down, your brain nudges you toward the same behavior. This is learning in action, though in the context of addiction, it's learning gone awry. Lewis's work also dismantles the idea that addicts are powerless. He himself battled years of drug addiction, cycling through highs and devastating lows. His story could have ended in tragedy, but instead, he reclaimed his life and dedicated himself to understanding the science behind his struggles. What he discovered was that addiction reshapes the brain through a process called neuroplasticity. Just as the brain can be rewired toward destructive habits, it can be rewired toward recovery. Picture a river carving a path through rock over time. That's how addiction shapes the brain, through repeated behavior, emotional intensity, and deeply personal meaning attached to certain experiences. But just as rivers can be diverted, neural pathways can be reshaped. This requires conscious effort, support, and often a powerful motivation to change. In addiction, this cycle intensifies because the brain's reward system is repeatedly overwhelmed by surges of dopamine triggered by substances like drugs, alcohol, or even addictive behaviors like gambling or compulsive eating. These dopamine floods far surpass what the brain would naturally encounter through everyday pleasures, like eating a good meal or connecting with loved ones. This artificial stimulation causes the brain's reward system to recalibrate. It adjusts by reducing its sensitivity to dopamine, making it harder to experience pleasure from normal, healthy activities. This is known as tolerance, the need for increasingly larger amounts of the substance or behavior to achieve the same euphoric effect. But addiction isn't just about chemistry. It's deeply emotional and psychological. When someone turns to substances or behaviors, they're often seeking more than just pleasure. They're searching for relief from stress, loneliness, trauma, or emotional pain. The brain quickly learns to associate the addictive behavior with emotional comfort and escape. Every time relief is achieved, even temporarily, the neural circuits in the brain strengthen this connection, embedding the behavior as a survival mechanism. Imagine a person struggling with social anxiety. They might initially turn to alcohol to loosen up in social settings. After experiencing relief and acceptance, their brain records this solution as effective. Over time, they might begin to rely on alcohol not just in social situations, but whenever they feel anxious or insecure. The emotional need entwines with the chemical dependency, creating a dual grip that's hard to break. This emotional component of addiction is critical to understanding why simply removing the addictive substance isn't enough for recovery. The deeper issues, feelings of inadequacy, unresolved trauma, or the need for belonging, still remain. In many cases, addiction fills an emotional void. It becomes a coping mechanism for dealing with life's complexities and challenges. The person isn't just addicted to the substance, they're addicted to the relief and escape it temporarily provides. This is why addiction often persists, even when the individual recognizes the harm it's causing. Logic and willpower alone aren't enough because the emotional brain, responsible for survival instincts, overrides rational thinking when cravings strike. The brain has become hardwired to view the addictive behavior as essential for emotional survival, making the desire nearly impossible to resist without proper support and intervention. Lewis also emphasizes that recovery isn't about erasing the past, it's about transforming it. People overcome addiction not by rejecting who they are, but by redefining themselves through new goals, relationships, and purposes. It's a process of learning new ways to experience joy, connection, and fulfillment without the crutch of addiction. Take a moment to think about something you've struggled to quit. Maybe procrastination, unhealthy eating, or even overworking. These habits, too, are driven by the brain's desire for comfort, control, or escape. Understanding how your brain learns and changes can be the key to overcoming those struggles. Marc Lewis's message is ultimately one of hope. Addiction might be a powerful force, but it's not an unchangeable fate. It's a human experience rooted in the brain's capacity to adapt. And because the brain is endlessly capable of change, so are we. His work reminds us that transformation isn't just possible. It's a fundamental part of being human. Breaking free from addiction requires rewiring these deeply embedded neural circuits. This involves not only managing withdrawal symptoms, but also confronting and healing the emotional wounds that fuel the addiction. Supportive relationships, therapy, and new positive experiences can help create healthier pathways in the brain, offering new sources of reward and emotional comfort. Ultimately, addiction is a complex interaction between brain chemistry and emotional reality. Understanding this connection highlights the need for compassionate, holistic approaches to recovery, approaches that address both the physical cravings and the emotional struggles at the heart of addiction. It's a journey not just of breaking a habit, but of rebuilding a life with healthier sources of joy, connection, and purpose.